Then we had high-stakes political theater, not only in London, but also on Capitol Hill, as one of the most powerful people in the technology world. Google CEO Sundar Pichai testified before the TV cameras and, of course, the House Judiciary Committee. Questions from lawmakers range from political bias at Google, Chinese censorship, and data privacy. But the big headline of the day was that Google CEO says the company has no plans to launch a search engine in China. Our next guest is the head of global strategy of Envestnet, a publicly traded financial services firm, Zachary Karabell. And we're also joined by independent tech expert and journalist Lance Ulanoff. All right, Lance, what jumped out at you?
Well, that statement, which seemed to fly in the face of everything that we've been hearing for weeks, and maybe even longer, that Google was planning on building a search engine, a filtered or restricted search engine for China. And he said flat out they have no plans to do so. Not everyone believes him that is the case. The other thing that jumped out is that lawmakers still don't understand how Google search works.
Right.
And they insist that it's people inside Google that are controlling the search results, when it's really an algorithm that can honestly be gamed by people who understand how it works, so they can really ensure that the results that they want show up when people search on Google.
Yeah, well, Congress thought that Tim Geithner worked at Goldman Sachs during his hearings to be Treasury Secretary. He did not. Zachary, what do you make of that? And do you believe Google, or did they just do this to mollify Congress before this event?
Well, I mean, look, it was clear from these hearings that there are indeed a lot of people who have no idea how Google works. I mean, there was somebody who held up saying, does Google know that I just moved my phone from here to here? And you know, the CEO stumbled, because the reality is it depends on your settings. It depends on what your privacy settings are. He tried to answer that question in that way with the nuance that, in fact, is real. And he was totally brushed off by that. And I love the idea of Google being such a large company that there are, you know, tens of thousands of people every time we type in a search are quickly trying to figure out our rank order returns. So, you know, there is as there has been with the Facebook hearings, as there will continue to be, a certain learning curve that's going on here. But I think the larger point is this is an area of the economy that has grown so astonishingly fast over the past decade plus. And as is always the case, public attitudes toward, is this a good thing or a bad thing, public attitudes towards regulation, which, by the way, is going to be both Republican and Democrat, are slow to catch up and are quickly accelerating.
Well, let's get to Republican and Democrat. Part of the discussion here was that Google has been accused of bias against conservatives. Let's first listen to what Mr. Pichai said, and then we will talk about that. Here he is.
While I'm confident we don't approach our work with any political bias, I think it's important to me that we always look at outcomes and we assess to make sure there is no evidence of bias.
Right.
Okay. Number one, there is some evidence, is there not, Lance? Some emails. But number two, it's a publicly traded company. It's not part of the government. And I believe even the GOP had to concede that we don't have a fairness doctrine anymore, where you're required to, you know, be fair and balanced in that regard. And I don't know. What did you make of that moment?
Well, I mean, I think here's the reality, that you have people from both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, independents, working at these companies. Maybe on the West Coast, you know, Silicon Valley, maybe it does lean a little bit more left. But I have to tell you, good business says, you know, if you define your products in that way, leaning left or right, you're not actually going to have a good product that people want. Google wants to be a global product. It wants to be for everyone. But one really important takeaway here that I believe is that Google's realizing, and probably some of the congressmen people are realizing, there is a complexity in managing your own Google life, your life on Google through the settings, where he kept going back to, well, you can go into the settings, fix things, and the reality is it's not simple enough for everyone, and maybe that would help people understand the service better if those parts of it were simplified.
Well, it may come to forget understanding regulation, Zachary. People want to disappear, or they want to have the right to disappear off social media platforms without a trace.
Right.
Did we get any closer to that?
Not yet. And again, the European example is really instructive. So everybody just started seeing a few months ago all their web pages showing up with, you know, do you accept or not accept the cookies, the tracking that is placed on every site, on every computer. This is, again, going to be, I think, a multi-year phenomenon that I believe Silicon Valley net is pun intended, not prepared for in any way. They are beginning to be prepared for. I think they are realizing you cannot occupy such a huge part of people's lives without people in a democratic society starting to go, hey, wait a minute, what does this mean for my privacy, my identity, my money? And this is not going to play out in easy partisan lines. This is going to play out in much different ways.
And they control 90% of search. We have to leave it there. I know Lance is like, but we have so much breaking news. Lance, Zachary, please come back. This is a great panel. You guys are both super smart on this issue. Thank you so much.